Live at the door. All right. All right, you're good. You go inside. Good morning. So kind of good morning for me. It's 10:06 in the morning for me. But it is 1:30 in the morning for my guest right now. Say hello to Richard Sallis. He's come out with this cool ass record. So yeah, introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Richard Sallis. I just came out with a cool ass record.
It is.
Um,
Well, this record. We're just gonna go right fucking into it. This record is a lay on the floor record. Um, one of the. It's so powerful and so huge, and I am so happy you reached out and wanted to talk about this record because I think that this is something that has kind of completely blown me away.
I bet you say that's all your guests.
Yeah, the this it's like from front to back, just this seven songs about first of all, the story involved is so heartbreaking, but there's just so much stuff happening here. Kind of just why don't you just tell everybody about this record and what it was like making it?
Oh, where do I start? So you might need to do some clever editing here because again, just for your listeners, it's 1:30 a.m. I've been up since 9 a.m. Um, I've also I'm looking after an infant at the moment. We just
Hmm.
had him a couple of months ago and he's teething now, so that's even more even less rest that I've gotten. So I'm gonna sound like a brain dead idiot. I'm not usually this bad, but yeah,
You
just got
sound great.
like
Seriously, there if I didn't say anything and no one else said anything, you would have sounded fine.
I could just say that this is what all Australians sound like.
Yeah.
Who's still gonna know? Yes, well, the album is called Felix. It it's my first album that I've made in I don't know 8 years or something like that, and it started when I first found out that my wife was pregnant.
Hmm.
And that's when I started writing the first song, and then the whole thing had to be finished before she gave birth. So I think I did the last of it, like a couple of days before she gave birth, and then I just sent it out to TuneCore, like, when she was in labor, because I just figured, like, as soon as this is over, my mind's going to be a completely different headspace, and I'm going to be so busy, and it's just not gonna. So whatever I had at that point was just went out.
I think
But
that's
it
really
took,
I think that's really
yeah,
fascinating that you bring that up because of the concept of like you had this window and you wanted this music to exist during the time while she was pregnant.
yeah,
So like
absolutely, because
there
yeah,
had to be like this thing where like, hey, I want like from the front to back of this entire recording and writing process to exist in that window.
yeah, it absolutely had to because I knew that as soon as the baby was born, my whole world was going to change, and everything that I'd written was just going to be irrelevant to what my life was at that point. Um, I'm just going to talk about this. I didn't. It's not something I really want to talk about too much, but just as background, you
Sure.
probably already did. But unfortunately, it took longer than 9 months because the first pregnancy failed. And I don't want to get too heavy off the bat. So
Sure.
if you want to edit this out, if
No
it doesn't
worries.
fit the
I think
vibe,
it's important.
um,
I think it's really important to understand where
yeah,
the kind of the music's all that stuff comes from, specifically
yeah,
this record.
yeah. Well, one of the themes that I kind of toned down a bit, um, and I haven't actually talked about this publicly yet,
Hmm.
is I was pretty inspired by the total abortion ban in America. That happened a couple of years ago, and just how horrifying that was.
Hmm.
And the reason why that infuriated me so much is because our first pregnancy ended up being ectopic.
Hmm.
So basically, my wife needed to get it flushed out of her with medication or she'd die, basically.
Hmm.
It was a literal life and death situation. And thankfully, because we live in South Australia, we've got some of the best, you know, maternal health care in the world, actually. And so we're able to get it done. It was traumatic, but it could have been so much worse. But we were talking about, holy crap, if we lived in like a red state in the US, you'd be dead. And you'd be dead because I knocked you up. And wow, that is, a massive mind fuck. And so the first song of the record, The Kid Has Gone Missing, again, you can edit this out if it gets too heavy, but that was actually written on my phone in the hospital waiting room, waiting to get for her to get treatment. And that was just an extreme experience in itself because you're in this room where all the women who have miscarriages go.
Hmm.
And so I'm just sitting there and I'm watching these women just burst into tears and just have complete meltdowns because they've lost their kids. And I'm just thinking, this is too intense for me, what I do. And so I just stuck my nose into my phone and I started writing what the first song is, The Kid Has Gone Missing. Thankfully, the rest of the album is way lighter than that. And I think
I
that's
would
part of the reason
agree.
why I
Yes,
put,
it is
yeah,
definitely
I, th
lighter.
I think, I think, I think, part of the thinking behind putting it as the first song was that okay, we'll get the really heavy stuff out of the way, and then the rest of it just seems a lot more fun in comparison. I initially actually wanted it as the closer, and my wife heard it and was like, "That's going to be too depressing."
I think it is great. It's like I think it's not a get it out of the way, but it's like, hey, I want you some people don't want to end on a sad note. And so there's kind of a moment where
Yeah,
like there's a lot of movies that start with like the bad thing and then work backwards into the good thing.
yeah,
So like I like that like if you had presented this to me as like which way you wanted to structure this, I would have absolutely done the exact structure that you did because this is it starts with just this huge kind of like who else is writing music like this like lyrically, and the rest is like this. Okay, cool, we've gotten through this, let's get a little we'll be a little bit happier, but it sticks with you through that the course of the rest of the record.
yeah. And I suppose that placement works to real life as well, because the rest of the album mostly is about okay, I actually have a kid now. They're going to survive. This is going to happen. It's going to be great. Um, But even then, I kind of shied away from being as like, oh, this is the best thing ever, amazing. Because, I just kind of think it just sound like cringe if I did that. But
Totally.
I think, I mean, it probably doesn't if someone else with actual talent did it. But,
Shut up.
but,
No, there's no. All right, first things first. This whole record, front to back, I
yeah,
spend, I spend, I think, a lot of my day listening to. I want to listen to new music all the time, and so
yeah,
there's this whole thing, especially in America. There's a lot of rising DIY bands, and that's kind of what I wanted to start this podcast in the first place. Is just to like give people a place to talk about themselves
mm,
when Rolling Stones isn't going to reach out to them, someone needs to talk to them, and so I've spent so much time talking to just young bands and or people just putting out new music, and this has been one of my favorite things ever told to listen to. This feels like such a rare gem, and front to back, this will be kind of in my head the rest of the year and for the years to come. I'm so happy you reached out so I could like hear this. I'm not sure if there was going to be any other way that I heard this. Like that's my favorite part about talking to people about these kinds of records where it's shot across the whole planet to in my inbox so that I could hear this, and I'm just you are so talented.
can I pick a bone with that though? You said it's like
Yes,
one of the best albums, but what if I'm always going to be this way by Noise Against the Floor? Um,
I love them.
that is brilliant.
I
I
I
have to,
love
I have
that
to stick up
record.
for them.
Yes, I
There's so many
I
songs on that album which I heard it. It's like, oh, I wish I wrote that. But
in talking to them about that record, I am so happy that like there's something nonchalant about a lot of the bands that I talk to, and Noise was very like um precise. They knew exactly kind of what they wanted to do. We got to kind of, after talking with them, I got to hear like what it was like for that journey. And there's still like this, all right, well, we put this record out and then we're going to try and tour on it. And then there's this nonchalantness. And I feel like I've noticed that, which is kind of everyone that I've spoken to, is that it's just music that everyone is making is like, okay, well, here's this thing that I made, and I still have to go back to my day job, but this part of me is kind of wrapped up and packaged and put out, and here we go. Okay. And there's something very, very strange about that because sometimes like your record, which is a complete like powerhouse front to back, and you are just here 1:30, probably 1:40 in the morning now, just like, taking care of your kid, having to do your day-to-day stuff.
Yeah. And it's amazing because um this album has, I don't want to brag to you or anything about that, but it's gotten like a lot of attention online. Like it's gotten a lot of Spotify streams and on rating music, it's kind of blown up. And nobody in the world is more surprised about that than I am. Because I legitimately thought when I made this album, like the entire time when I was making it, in my head, I was thinking, this will be heard by at most 50 people,
Hmm.
probably less. It will just be my friends and some family members and maybe one or two strays that I can find off a message board somewhere, and that'll be it.
That is how
Um,
it works, though. It's always
yeah.
small and it's always strange. And then suddenly it happens. It just clicks and people. I mean, also, if anyone heard, like, I've already told my wife about this record. Like, as anyone that hears it, they're gonna try and tell somebody. So that kind of makes sense for me.
Oh,
Specifically, like, there's something so powerful about your record. But I just think that, like, that's how good records go, especially in the
yeah.
beginning, for like someone hears it and goes, "Oh, holy shit, what the fuck? I need to tell everyone about this." And it sounds like that is exactly what's happening with you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, can I just say that like I do honestly generally really appreciate all these things you're saying.
Yeah, no,
You
absolutely.
you do not take it for granted at all, like ever. And you're talking about my record as saying, oh, it's this amazing powerhouse, everyone has to hear it. Of course it's blowing off, of course it's huge. But like, I mean, I would never presume that in a million years, I mean, this is not my first record. I've done a whole bunch and they've just been
Mhm.
heard by no one. So like it still kind of blows my mind that there are actually people, on the other side of the world that actually care about this
It's
silly
kind
little
of
thing they throw together.
I think that that is kind of the after talking to so many bands, I think that that's
Yeah.
kind of par for the course for anyone that experiences this.
I,
It's always a shock.
yeah. I don't know like if it's the case with like all the other bands you speak to, but for me, I kind of just like assumed it was going to fail.
I
And
think
like I
that
didn't
that's
even
pretty par
question.
for the course as well. I think that
Yeah.
there's a thing that everyone is like, it happened to me, it happened to a lot of people that I've talked to, where it's just like, oh, I mean, I made it and I put it out there and I put it out there the best that I could, and then I had to go to work. Like that's the experience that everyone, like most people are still kind of having to live with the fact that they're doing having to go to work and doing all these things all the time, but then also checking, being shocked and surprised whenever something gets picked up and be like, whoa, what the fuck? This is
Yeah.
ridiculous. That like, oh man, oh sorry, I still have to go back to work, but this is cool that this is happening.
I'll tell you what, like one of the things that totally caught me off guard is my inbox started flooding up with people who's like, from all over the world with people saying, "Oh, can I buy? I want to buy it on vinyl. Can I buy the CD?" And I'm just thinking to myself, I could, I could fairly afford rent this week. How am I going to afford a box full of vinyl? And then I have
I
people just,
that is the thing. It is, and that
and
is the
it never occurred to me for a second that people would actually want to buy like big bulky copies of this thing.
well, I
And
was
now I'm
literally
thinking, oh, I'm gonna have to do it now, aren't I? But it's just like, it's just one of those things. Like, obviously, like I'd love to have my work on vinyl, but
Mhm.
I thought, whilst I was making the record, if I went and got a vinyl run done or a CD run done, I'm basically just flushing money down the toilet and just getting, my garage filled with bulky stuff that's never going to sell because that's what I've done in the past. So why am I going to bother doing that again? And then there's suddenly a demand for it. And it's just like, what?
Yeah, I think that first things first, that's so how did that moment where you get like that ask of like, can I buy this on vinyl? There's something about all music kind of exists right now in the digital space first, or like it goes from our heads into our fingers into a computer, and then it sits in the computer and people can listen to it, and then the request for it to leave the digital space into the physical space as like a physical product, a vinyl, a CD, a cassette. It feels like it feels really heavy because it's like, well, most people just enjoy the complacency of just like listening to music on Spotify or Apple or anything like that. So that's how I've when someone had asked our band that, when I've talked to other bands that have been asked that, that's always the feeling where it's like, wow, you care that much to remove it from this digital space. I don't think that I think that that is like the buried lead of making music where there's some moment where someone's like, I want this in a physical copy.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just thinking now, like I'm talking about it, I'm gonna have to get some made up. It's interesting though, because like I'm probably older than a lot of the people you speak to at this point. So I grew up with CDs,
hmm
and when I was a little kid, it was my dream to one day release a CD and then go into my CD store and see, copies for it on sale. I didn't quite predict how the next 20 years of music consumption was going to go. Um,
Yeah,
and
no one did.
but yeah, I still like, like I'm not a Spotify person even now.
hmm
Like I think probably the part of the reason why like most of my records up until this point have kind of failed is because I've kind of just put them out in Bandcamp because I
Yeah.
don't like Spotify very much and I still don't. But
No.
it kind of at this point is like if it's not on Spotify, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's kind of
So
like this required
yeah,
thing. It's annoying and goofy and weird, which is why I appreciated the what you did is you just sent me the Bandcamp link, which I was like, okay, this is when people send Bandcamp links, I'm like, okay, so you care about, first of all, music and like musicians. Like that I think is really, really cool. I actually have stopped using um Spotify completely. The only reason I use Spotify now is that's where the podcast is hosted on Spotify because it's
yeah.
free, and that's pretty chill that they did that. But it's still like that's it. I listen to all my music on Apple Music. I find the
I still
UI
own an
just,
iPod.
yeah, right. It's like I still have
I
to
have no
like
idea
engage.
yeah, I have no idea what's gonna happen when it finally carks it. But I just like the idea of owning music.
Yeah, me too.
I don't love this idea that like, you're paying a fee to kind of listen to someone else's collection. But I
Yeah,
suppose at the same time, it's like that's the way the world is going. So,
yeah, and like
um,
Bandcamp is nice for that because it's like you can still feel
yeah,
like that you've, tossed some dollars towards, a good artist, especially like the concepts of like, Bandcamp Friday and all these really, really cool. I mean, Bandcamp's gotten a lot weirder over the last like 2 years with like the acquisition and all this crazy shit that happened to it. But it's still working and floating around, so like people are still using it while it's still here, which I appreciate.
yeah,
Um, but we'll see where that goes in the next couple of years.
yeah. The other thing that I miss about the physical era that you can kind of do in Bandcamp a little bit is the emphasis on visual art.
hmm
Like one of my favorite things as a kid was like going not just buying the CD and putting it in the CD player, but then flipping through the booklet and seeing all the photos and the artwork. And my
Yeah,
favorite CDs were the ones that had really immersive stuff. So I still, I can't afford to print physical copies at the moment, but if you download the full album on Bandcamp, you'll get like a PDF file which has basically what a CD booklet would look like if I could manufacture it. And
that's
actually,
incredible.
yeah. And it's kind of just a little preview of the future here. I'm currently working on my next record, and I spent several weeks kind of putting together the artwork for that. And so there's going to be another digital booklet for that one. And I'm also thinking of, I don't know, maybe like making a YouTube video with the artwork in it or something like that, because I know people aren't going to buy physical stuff anymore. But with this new album I'm making right now, for me, the visual component is going to be really important for trying to communicate the ideas that I have.
Hmm.
And you can't really do that with just one small JPEG image.
Totally. No,
Yeah.
I have you thought about I like I'm just thinking about out loud here. Have you thought about doing like a cassette and then when you if people bought that, you would also send them like this physical digital booklet?
Um, I'm thinking about it now.
Because I think
Again,
cassettes I feel like over the last 10, 12 years I've heard more and more, and actually now that I'm like immersed in it, like cassettes are really really cool, good band product because most people don't um have a cassette player, but people do want to support a band or people do want to support
yeah,
a project. So there's been a lot of really cool places that are making cassettes. There's people that like hand make cassettes. And there's a great community behind it, but it seems like, this would be like the digital art booklet, a cassette. There's something really, really cool about like, hey, I want you to interact with my art in a physical space. Here's something that you can do that's, first of all, it'd be cheap to make. I think like you can get like 100 cassettes done for like 50 cassettes done for like $100. It's like a 2 to 1.
that's not
Um,
bad.
and it's not bad at all. And then like I bet you could print off like this digital booklet thing for a very, again, under $100 or at least under 150. And then you could like not necessarily thinking about like, oh, this is what you should charge, but I feel like that there would be a reasonable way for people to interact with your art in a physical way with this cassette idea, which I think is just like I love cassettes. I think they're just so much fun right now.
Yeah. No, I love cassettes too. I mean, again, I'm an older guy, so I grew up with them. But I think, the thing that I just keep thinking about is there demand for it? And
Totally.
so that's the thing that I'm kind of afraid of at the moment is like, even though, yeah, I know a lot of people are now interacting with my music in the digital space, is there enough people interested to kind of justify the costs and more than the cost, just the physical space at my house, which there isn't a lot of.
Yeah.
Um, especially I've got a kid now as well, so it's
No, it's just like listen, it's like you have to think about
actually
art in like cubic feet now.
actually I'm going to tie it all together with just a random anecdote because bringing talking about like my kids and physical cassettes. One of my parents' favorite stories to tell me is that when I was a little kid, when I was a toddler, like I don't know, 2 or 3 or whatever I was, I like taking things apart. And so I went, I raided my parents' cassette collection and I just tore all the tape out of all the cassettes and just like put it around my bedroom like streamers.
Oh my God!
And
That's
they were pissed off because there was some big rare cassettes in there. But you know what? I'm not sorry. It was
no, I
fun.
mean oh my God, that's perfect. It's
So
like
now I'm thinking about it and I'm just like, can I trust, this kid with my genes around this $100 box of cassettes I've just got?
oh, that's you know what? And there's like you could test like the DNA memory of it where you could put a cassette in front of this little homie and just be like, all right, this is what I wanted to do. Let's see if you want to do that too. We'll see if we can trust you with this.
I think there's a very high chance.
That's
He's
so
already
it's
gone.
incredible. That's incredible. So I want to kind of walk backwards. So I'm 37. I didn't start a band until a lot later in life. So you were in an old band as well called is it Cameramen or The Cameramen?
The cameraman. Well, I've been in there have been two big bands I've been in. The first was Stock Exchange. So that was formed when I was about 18 years old.
Hmm.
Straight out of high school, went into that band. And we did pretty well. Like we did some minor touring around Adelaide and we, played some pretty big shows. And then some members quit and we
Hmm.
decided that we'd hire some new members and then we decided it wasn't the same band anymore. So we renamed ourselves the Cameramen. and we had a lot of fun. But then um, we ended up playing our last show in March 2020.
Hmm.
You'll never guess what happened next.
Oh, and
Um,
there's just oh
and
man,
and
it's
now yeah, and that just killed the whole band. So then yeah,
I feel like there's like this the pandemic did so many things. One, it was like this alchemical experience. A bunch of bands had to end and then a bunch of bands had to start. Like there's
yeah,
this it was this really crazy experience that like either said like, "Hey, we're going to either pause." It was like the big stress test, the big art stress test
yeah,
where some people were either looking for excuses to find a way to stop. Some people were looking for excuses to find a way to start. That was me. I'm one of the startees
mm.
where I was like, okay, well, I'm in my house. Let's fucking do it. And that's how my stuff started. And I think that there's a cool, interesting thing with you where one stopped and then also one started.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with Felix, I wanted to be a cameraman album initially, actually. I
Uh-huh.
started writing it with the idea of like, this is going to be for the new band. Like, the last song, Bouncing Masquerade Ball, was actually written because I thought, oh, this would be a really good set closer for the cameraman. So, and we can just jam on it, and it'll be great. And then they just weren't interested, and I was just like, well, and it wasn't like there was any falling outs or anything like that. It's
Hmm.
just that, the pandemic, if the pandemic lasted like 6 months, we would have jumped straight back into it. But the
Sure.
fact it took like 2 years by that point, people had gotten married, people had gotten jobs, people had moved away. And it just, and up, some members decided that they wanted to keep making music, but with different people and a different style and all that sort of thing. And so I thought to myself, well, I'm still really proud of this stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and if they're not going to do it, then I'll just put it out myself. But I was really nervous because like I've done a few solo things on Bandcamp as like side projects.
Hmm.
Like the band is my main thing, and then I've got these extracurricular things. But Felix is the first time where I didn't have a band, and it was like, okay, this is me. Um, usually I have a band. Even if I do like most of it myself, a band is helpful to kind of make you feel less vulnerable, I guess.
Totally.
So yeah, it was an interesting experience.
Now kind of walk us through like kind of the moment of where you realized it was going to be you moving forward. Um, what was the organization like in your head of, okay, well, did you use all of your old like contacts for recording and mixing and mastering, or did you try and start everything from scratch?
Um, a bit of both.
Hmm.
Because lots of people were asked to do lots of different things. Some people said yes, some people said no. When people say yes, it's great. When they say no, you're just like, well, I've just got to find another way to make it work.
Hmm.
Actually, the most irritating ones are the people who say yes and then do nothing.
That's
There's quite a
it.
few of those.
Those are the worst.
There were quite a few of those. But you got to be creative and work around it. And it's again, what I was doing, like none of it's really new. Like I've always been like mixing stuff by myself. And during the pandemic, actually, I kind of stopped making my own music, but I started doing remixes of other artists' work.
Hmm.
Especially because that was the time. I know this is not very cool to bring up now, but like there was this sort of new AI stem splitting technology
Sure,
where
yeah.
you feed a song and then it spits out the vocals and the drums and the bass and I was just my head exploded with that. It's like I've wanted stems for all these songs my entire life. Now they're just here. And then so I spent like a year doing like remixes and stuff like that. And then I decided with what I'd learned, I'd get into producing my own music.
I think that that's great. Using that tool. Listen, AI is, I think that, this is a long conversation when it comes to the AI thing. I think there's a lot of
Yeah, yeah,
people,
yeah, yeah.
a lot of people don't, a lot of people have their feelings hurt when you see someone using AI to make like art. And I think
Yeah.
that that's valid because it's like, hey, you just because you typed into a thing, you could have gotten something a little bit closer to what you wanted if you just worked with a real person that has been like
Yeah,
that's how I feel about that kind of stuff. I work specifically in an AI tool for podcasting.
yeah,
That so like I understand using AI as like a tool to do things. I think that that's fine. That's great. If as long as like those things are like I like ethical. Like I can't take a song as a like maybe with like a lot of work, I couldn't take a song and divide it in, into all of those parts. That AI tool is great. I think I know exactly the one you're talking about. And there was a
yeah, yeah,
huge
yeah,
remix. There was a whole remix thing that happened because of that tool. That's really, really cool that that
yeah.
happened.
And it's not like that particular tool is, creating anything. Like it's not,
Exactly. It's just a tool.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, I don't want to get into a huge debate about AI because like a lot of
Yeah.
people have done that. All I'll say is my thoughts on AI has always been like it's when it first came out, I thought, this is like a neutral tool that's only as good or as bad as the people that use it. And
Totally.
unfortunately, humanity is just fucked. So like we can't have nice things ever. Um,
I
I'm
fully,
talking I'm
fully agree.
I'm talking to the American here, so I think
Yeah.
you'll
Yeah. Yeah. We're sorry. We fucked it all up. I'm sorry, y'all.
I could talk about that for hours, but I think that's a different podcast.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
So the,
So, yeah.
when it came to like, uh, the timing of everything, right? So you
Yeah,
started
yeah.
writing. How long did it take you to write the record? How long did it take you to mix and master it? I mean, you had to get choirs involved. There's so much happening
Oh,
on this
yes.
record that are like uh you having to get
Uh
out of your
it
house to do certain things.
actually, I've got to tie it into the AI thing before because when you mentioned the choir, the thought did occur to me. If I'd just used AI voices for the choir, I could have gotten it done in like an hour.
Sure.
And instead, I decided to just ask every single singer that I knew, and it just dragged on for 6 months waiting for people to get back to you. I could have just gone to the church and asked, "Hey, can I, record your choir one day?" And they might have said yes. But no, I decided I'm going to go on Facebook Messenger. I'm going to message every single person these stems, and I'm just going to be like, "Hey, sing this for me." And that's where you had a lot of people that were like, "Yes, absolutely, I'll do it." And then you never hear from them again.
Yeah, it's kind of
So
like that's the numbers game where it's like, okay, well, I need 10 people, so I'm gonna have to email 40. Uh,
exactly, exactly. But it's the
yeah, it's
same with
like
gigs. I mean, I'm sure it's like the same with gigs for a lot of artists. Like
100%.
where it used to be like people don't really do this anymore, but like back in the day, I'm really revealing my age here. Um, you used to invite friends to gigs using Facebook and you'd set up a
Yep.
Facebook event.
Hmm.
And the general rule is like, I don't know, like 10% of people who say they're going are actually going.
Yep.
And so you'd have like, you know, 200 people saying they're going to attend, and then you play like an empty venue with like 20 people in it. Um,
Yep.
and as my dad always says, the only people you believe are the people who say they're not coming.
I that is a great anecdote that I want to use for the rest of my life. That is incredibly honest and real and true. The I remember, in the 2010s, with the Facebook thing, the concept of marketing, digital marketing was it. It was just like an event on
Mm,
Facebook, and you were constantly getting, especially like during the, I'm from Iowa, like middle fucking America, and there was this
yeah,
really weird dubstep scene, and like uh I would just get like my inbox would be just flooded with just like events tomorrow, the next day of just like weird dubstep things. And I'm like, can someone stop fucking inviting me to this stuff? I'll go for my friends, but like, I'm not going to go to some weird barn rave right now. I'm trying to get through school or trying to do all this, but like
yeah,
that digital marketing has come just such a long way now with like, thankfully for Instagram, and like it just takes all those dumb events away from Facebook, which I don't even think I use Facebook anymore. Um,
oh, I don't either. Although you might want to give me some advice because I'm hoping next year I'll play some gigs again, and I have no idea how I'm going to promote these things
Oh,
because
that is,
with
I
all
would
my
just say
experience,
Instagram, just Instagram, and
yeah,
just that is, if you direct everyone to your Instagram, that's where you show your show page. That is the only
yeah,
way I know. As long as you're like posting interesting stuff and keeping people engaged, then as long as you have enough people that are looking at you, then you can post your show, and you post your show like for like 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks.
mm,
And that is kind of it. Also, Twitter is like really fucking huge for like promoting like band stuff. As much as I don't like Twitter and it sucks, Blue Sky is great. Blue Sky, the tandem effects of using Instagram, Twitter, and Blue Sky. I think promotion and discoverability is kind of solved.
yeah,
It's,
absolutely.
it's great, and you don't have to use Facebook events anymore because burn it down.
Oh no, I wouldn't even try. Like I'm sure like my Facebook like I'm sure I've been invited to like 100 million things on Facebook at this point, and I just haven't checked. Sometimes it
Totally.
gets a bit awkward. Like a good friend of mine had like a 30th that
Mhm.
I totally missed because he sent me a Facebook event. And I'm just like, well,
You're like, oh, no, I didn't see it. Sorry.
no. Oh,
Well, listen, I would love to play a song from the record Felix. There are
yep.
7 killer songs to choose from. What would be a song that you would like to hear played?
Um, I suppose a song for the broadcasters is the single, quote unquote.
That
So
song is perfect. I was hoping you were going to pick
yeah.
it. All right, so this is a song for the broadcasters by Richard Sallis.
After the setting sun, still praying that the day will come when you can scream, I am young again, before the batteries get spent. Looking at photos of old friends, will they ever say your name again? Nobody knows, but you can just pretend as you're lying in your bed. They say you gotta learn a time of their own to be young, but when my head hits the midnight pillow, I can barely breathe. Yeah, I can barely breathe. The clock strikes midnight once again, so I gotta ask, do you feel better yet? Sunglasses at night won't dim the blinding lights, but you have fond memories wearing them. They say you gotta learn a time of their own to be young, but when my head hits the midnight pillow, I can barely breathe. Yeah, I can barely breathe. I'm only kind of sorry I had to leave. I just wanted to protect my memories, so what sees inside. Don't dim the rising lights. The bullets that hide my stupid eyes. They say you got a limited time of their own to be young. But when my head hits the midnight pillow, I can barely breathe. Yeah, I can barely breathe.
That was a song for the broadcasters. Homie, Richard, it was a pleasure talking to you. Listen, get some sleep. Do the thing. Thank you for staying up all day to talk to me. And just, the record is incredible. Can't wait for more people to listen to this and literally be so proud of the work that you did. This is incredible.
Thank you so much for having me. It really does mean a lot. I mean, I wasn't expecting you to say yes. So, I've had a wonderful time, and hopefully we'll get to chat again soon.
Please. All right. We'll talk to you soon, Richard. You're the best.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.